So, party people, this is part two for the week three analysis, going over the contenders and the edit of the episode. And so it was a pretty advantage heavy episode. We got a lot of production mechanics about understanding what was happening, but we did get some content from each tribe. And again, when it comes to the contenders of this season, it's about consistency. It's about somebody who you get a lot of visibility from and somebody who you feel has a consistent and constant narrative, and you're reminded about what their story is every week, and their story has an element of survivor winner to it. And so that's really what I'm narrowing down, because I'm seeing my thoughts diverge a lot from the public opinion online. And so I just want to reiterate kind of how I'm looking at it, and I'm really thinking through narratives. And when you look at even how I rank the individuals on my list, just because you're at the lowest end doesn't mean that you're going to vote out next. It just means that you're least likely to be the winner. So somebody who's decently high middle of the pack is likely going to go every week because they have enough of an edit to understand who they are so far. But their time has come, and they weren't likely edited to be a winner in any respect. And so let's chat about Brad's edit. And so Brad, I had him at number 10 last episode, despite Brad having his awesome backstory about how hardworking he is working on a ranch, losing his dad right before he came onto the show, and he had the most confessionals this episode by far. Like, this was the Brad episode. But I think Brad was just represented the theme of this season, and I think it was this playing hard mentality, playing these advantages, and you got really good commentary about his views of the advantages as well. I think Brad would do very well in a normal season, probably in a normal 39-day season, because he's a provider at camp. He probably survives well during pre-merge, yet he's still astute enough to keep looking for those advantages and think strategically. But he made some glaring errors. I ranked him at 10, but Brad, he just seemed too blunt. You didn't really get strong, well-rounded winner edit from him, and so his time has come. And so Vochi was 10, and Brad is 10, so we'll wait to see who is 10, because that might be the death number for next episode. But let's just start from the top, and once again, Tiffany, number 1. And I don't think Tiffany's playing a great game, but the edit is so unbelievably strong for her. It's actually crazy. She was the one who ended up finding this advantage, and Liann basically said, "This is my $1 million error. No, it's my $1 million mistake." And like, Tiffany had this good commentary about how she wouldn't be sharing this advantage, and we basically saw how Xander's downfall, her Vochi, and Brad's downfall were oversharing advantages. And so we got actually a very correct statement, and that's why I look for correct statements from Tiffany about sharing advantages. And so the fact that she wants to keep it is a good sign for her. We got some negative content from her between Sydney and Tiffany, a little bit of a tiff. I guess you could say that was happening at that summit. They both said that they didn't trust each other, and Sydney actually called Tiffany playing too hard too quick. And I think that fits the narrative of this season. So I think, again, it's a check for Tiffany. And even during the challenge, we did get like Jeff Probst singling out some comments to Tiffany, where it's, you know what, Tiffany continues to fight. Great job, Tiffany. And so even during the challenges, we're seeing relevance from Tiffany overcoming. She probably didn't make the right play when it came to choosing to go for the tarp instead of steal a vote, but we didn't really get any negative content about that decision being a mistake. And so Tiffany continues to be very relevant. We continue to understand some of her strategic choices. She didn't go to tribal, but that was enough for me to keep her at number 1. We're getting enough of her narrative. And number 2, JD. And JD was almost the boot again. We're getting a lot of JD content. We got this whole content about him having his idol in his pants. Not his idol, sorry. His additional vote. And then he had to basically save face and give his additional vote to Shan. We got a really emotional response from him in Tribal Council about talking about dropping crystals and how he always loves this game. Again, he's talking about some of his heroes. He's talking about Malcolm, Ozzy. He mentioned Reem one time when he was giving impressions in camp, where you just get a bit of a sense like he's a bit of a class clown around. These are all famous people who did not win the show. So have some fans who are winners. Like, be a fan of some winners, not always runner-ups. But nevertheless, we're getting a lot of consistent JD content. JD had this full confessional about looking for idols, and although Brad did end up finding it, JD was the one who was trying to target Brad. So JD was the one who was kind of right overall, and he's like, Brad's sneaky, Brad's a snake, I want Brad gone. So even though JD didn't have complete knowledge, his gut intuition was still correct. he did flub the challenge, but how do you edit that out? Like, that was pretty funny. It was NBA moves trying to win that challenge. And so, other than Brad, this episode, JD was the most well edited. We got the most content from him, and he remains relevant. We're getting real emotional responses from him. We had a lot of strategy. He really essentially told Shan, I made errors, and trying to live up to his errors. You're getting a bit of a redemption arc from him. I like his arc. I like his narrative. JD's narrative has been consistent every episode, and so he's still at number 2 for me. Number 3, okay, everybody, I'm agreeing with you. Shan's moving up. Shan was 9, then 5, then 3. We got the content we needed from Shan. We got that emotional content I've been waiting for, where she was talking about her parents and talking about how she feels like she's in between 2 different things. We had a sense of how she really felt, how her heart really went out to both JD and to Brad, and it really felt like voting out somebody who was a real trustworthy confidant. This is an Evvie strategy bot like edit. This is Shan playing and putting herself into the game and really relating this to her personal life. And this is the content we need to see from Shan. She's moved from just strategy mastermind to somebody who's playing this game with feelings, with heart. We kind of got a sense of that during her moment with JD. We're seeing a lot of her in terms of her conversations with Brad, her conversations with Ricardo. We understand Shan's relationships. We understand her gameplay. It's looking pretty good for Shan. Shan's positioning herself really well to move forward to the next phase of the game as well. She got the advantage from JD, and she got rid of the guy with 2 other advantages in terms of Brad. And so Shan's playing the strategic game, the emotional game. That's why I have her jumping up. I know her narrative didn't start too strong, but this is the emotional content we had to see from her, and we're getting it, and she's now a top contender in my books. So then we move on to number 4, and I think this is going to drop more. I had Sydney at 3. She's now at 4. We did get a lot from Sydney. For the Blue Tribe, that's the only person we're really getting good content from. We got to understand, hey, you know what? Like, look, Nasir kind of talked some trash about you, Danny, the other night, and then she's trying to tell that to the rest of the tribe. These seem like errors, but we're still getting her viewpoint on it. We understood why she wanted to get that advantage. We did get a lot of thought process from her about that beware advantage and how she felt about Brad. You know, I want Brad to get it. How she felt about Tiffany. I don't trust Tiffany. I don't get a good vibe from her. She's a sassy person. I think her content's always going to be a little bit negative just because that's how she is. But from the Blue Tribe, we're still seeing a lot from her. She's still a top contender. She might be getting a downfall edit. I don't know. That preview didn't feel good to me about Sydney, but it could just be the start of a real kind of emotional side to Sydney. And so, although I think she could be the boot, I think this could be building into a narrative where Sydney's going to really try to develop her survivor story. We've gotten content from her. I think her moment might be coming. And so I have her at 4. I have her at the lowest end of my top contenders, but I feel good about her still. 5, it's a drop. It's Evvie. We got nothing from Evvie. I had her at 4. She's now at 5. Like, she feels very situational now. Like, she had huge content the previous episode. I think just because she was a fundamental kind of player in that yellow tribe, and to understand how that tribal went down, to understand how she got voted out, we had to understand Evvie's perspective. But not hearing anything from her, especially not hearing about her thought process on voting out Vochi instead of Xander, I think is bad. I would have dropped her lower. It's just we didn't get a lot from any other players outside of that top 4 I mentioned this episode. We really got very little content. And so Evvie kind of stays there just because nobody else really eclipsed her. And so she's still there at 5. I still have Nasir at 6. He's staying steady. We did get some content from Nasir. Nasir went from bad to good to bad again, and so we're getting a bit of that ping-pong effect. Nasir's still on our mind. We still understand where he is. He apologized to the group. Well, how far that apology is going to go, who knows? But, Nasir at least called out Sydney as a double agent. We get a sense that Nasir understands what's happening. He's not just there as a silent player. I also do like the fact that they do talk about throwing a challenge in the next episode, and Nasir, at the start, he said the first season I watched was season 21. That was a season with one of the most famous challenge throws where the Zapatera tribe threw the challenge to get rid of Russell Hans, and that ended up screwing over all their chances. Maybe Nasir, using that first Survivor season he ever saw, will be the voice of reason to tell us, tribe, you know what? You guys maybe want to get rid of me. I'm loyal. Please don't. I'm going to bite my ass off for this challenge, and I'll be loyal to you guys moving forward. Let's see if Nasir can steer the ship in the right direction and he's back in the good graces. But he has a narrative. He has a story, and that's why he's still there at 6. Is it as good as at 5 ahead of him? No, but he's there. Number 7, this is probably the edge of where kind of the contenders are. It's Ricardo, and Ricardo's moved up, 11, 9, 7. Ricardo is kind of Shan's right-hand person, is what we're starting to see. He built that bridge with JD. We're getting to understand Ricardo's gameplay a little bit more. I thought he was quite influential in convincing Shan to move over to JD. We did get an interesting quote from Ricardo where it's like, it's not, like, we'll see if Shan can make up her mind. Kind of like Ricardo starts to shade at Shan, like, I'm the mastermind, Shan. Like, listen to me and we'll see if she's able to get her ducks in a row. And Ricardo wasn't even on a target at all. It was Brad and JD, and so Ricardo's sitting pretty in the background, and I think that's great for his game. You're starting to really get that narrative where, he is kind of building some strategic inroads. We did get those emotions from the start from him. We did understand what his family situation is. He was part of that, hey, come on in, guys, comment, and so on. And so we do understand a little bit about Ricardo. I like him. We get a little bit more from others. So he's there at 7. 8 is Xander. We didn't get much from Xander. We got a little bit of that conversation between him and Brad about the idol. I wanted to drop him lower because, like, Xander was the result of a blindside. Like, why didn't we hear from him? Vochi got blindsided. You usually want to hear from the person who was most affected by it. If Xander is the winner, we would have heard from him. Maybe we'll hear from him at the start of next episode saying, look, I still don't trust these girls. I'm here on an island here. But there was such a good opportunity for a beautiful Xander confessional to really understand his narrative. We did not get that. That's a huge black mark for him. I had already actually dropped him last episode down to 7, so he's here at 8. I think he's still a relevant player. I think he's still going to be a player that goes in late, or he's going to be a memorable player this season. So he's still at 8. But I think this is kind of the threshold for contenders versus people who may be eliminated from contention this season. 9 is Liann. I had Liann at 14. I had her really low. People online have Liann up to number 2 in terms of their edit pick. We got this confessional from Liann at the start about wanting to make a big move. But what big move has she made? She hasn't made one, and she could have made one. But we're getting some relevance from her. She was the voice from the Yellow Tribe this episode, other than Tiffany. She was kind of the secondary voice we got from Yasa. And so I have her 5 points up. I don't think it really matters. I think we need to really start to see something different from Liann. I still don't have a good sense of who she is and what her motivations are and how she feels. And, like, did she feel negativity towards Xander? What is her true feeling towards Tiffany? I don't know what she's feeling. I don't know how her heart is operating this game. Unlike JD, unlike Tiffany, unlike Shan, Sydney, we're getting real senses of how they're feeling towards players, not just the strategic element of it, and that's important. Sydney, at least it's, she's saying negative stuff about Tiffany and Nasir and Heather, but at least we're getting that. Even if it's negative, we need to get the feelings. I'm not getting that from Liann yet. It's a huge jump up because of her strategic shift up, but that's where she is now. She's still at 9. 10, this is a death number, Desean. We'll see how you do. You're up from 13, Desean. You were my last pick from the first episode, just because I think you would have gotten more content that first episode had you have won. I think you still would have gotten more content. He has a little bit of negative content. I think he might be the surprise boot next episode. I think the 10 number is kind of where it is. Maybe he decides to throw the challenge and there's some tribe drama and he ends up getting voted out. Loses trust of Danny or whoever. But he's there at 10. I think we did get one small confessional from him about the Blue Tribe, just commenting on it must have been the Nasir situation or something like that, but it's not enough from Desean. We need to see more from him. 10 is good just because we're getting a little bit from him. He's relevant. We did get that big confessional from him, and that we still remember who Desean is, the hardworking medical student, but we'll see what happens when Blue comes to blows. 11 is Danny. We didn't see Danny 2 episodes in a row. He had a strong first episode, silent. He dropped from 8 to 11, down 3. 12 is Erika, same story. we didn't see anything from Erika this episode. Now we see Danny and Erika both in the preview for next episode, so we know that they're not completely hidden. But Erika's at 12. We didn't get anything from her. 13, we have Jeannie. Jeannie was 12 last week. Jeannie, like, this was an episode for her to have a bit more of a voice. We saw her a little bit talking about how great it is that Brad has an advantage, and that's all we really got from Jeannie, but it ended up being wrong because Brad got voted out. We don't really get a sense of how Jeannie bonds with the tribe. We got negative content about her relationship with Ricardo, which was never really explored, and it was just brought up again, this tribal. It just kind of felt shoehorned in. For losing your number one ally, and for the tribe that's small, we're getting close to nothing from Jeannie. All the other players on that green tribe have just such a larger personality. We'll see if Jeannie has a little bit of a revenge arc when it comes to Brad, and then Jeannie might be able to move up in the rankings. But we got no content from her the previous episode. We got very little this episode, even when Green went to tribal, and so that's tough. That's tough to see if Jeannie can recover and really build some content for a winner's arc. Heather is last place, 14. You don't know who Heather is. And so, yeah, that's the wrap. You know what? The top 6 have stayed the same. It was just kind of a switch around between 3 to 5 to move Shan up, and Sydney and Evvie kind of both went down a point. But the top 5 is there. Nasir is there at 6. I don't think Nasir is going to win, but maybe if his edit goes higher. I think the next episode, when we start to see some drama from Blue, I'm assuming Blue goes to tribal or something happens with Blue. I think we're going to really start to understand and flesh out those characters, and we can see if Danny, Erika, Heather are able to move up. We kind of will better understand where Sydney, Desean, and Nasir stand, as those are the 3 players we know the best on the Blue tribe. And that might help us clear up exactly who the contenders of the season are going to be. But I still feel really strongly about Tiffany and JD. They have survivor narratives. I'm leaning towards Shan a little bit too. So we'll see between those 3 who's able to take the crown, and we'll chat more next week. So this is Survivor Teek signing off. Take care, everybody.